Hey sis.
Who, me? Who, me? Who, me?
Yes, you. Hello, welcome back to the Hey Sis, Yes You podcast. I am your host, Jalyssa, and today I have the honor and privilege of having my beautiful friend Ebie here with me today. You guys have no idea. I love this woman. She is such a gem, such a powerhouse for the kingdom of God, such a champion of so many things. And we are all just privileged to hear from her today. So, welcome, Evie, to the podcast. How are
You.
you today, friend?
Always a hot mess. So whoever's
Girl.
listening, you're in good company.
Oh, same. We can all relate. Why don't you introduce yourself to the podcast?
Yes, my name is Ebie Hepworth. Ebie is short for Elizabeth. And I am born and raised in the Central Valley of California and then moved to Boise, Idaho when I was 18 years old. I played soccer in college and then ended up just staying in this area. I met my husband, and the rest is history. You know what I mean? So I have been in my professional world. For a little bit over 7 years, was in the anti-human trafficking scene and did a lot of work internationally with that. And then in 2017, adopted my two big babies, and they are the light and joy of my life. And coming home, shortly after coming home from Liberia, West Africa, we got a diagnosis of my son of a terminal genetic disease. And so it was pretty easy to know that I needed to set everything down and just be able to pick him up. And so that was in 2018. And then after 7 years of being told I'd never have babies, I gave birth to twin boys that are absolute wild men. And they were born in 2021. And so we have four total miracle babies. And our house, it usually sounds like somebody's getting hurt because you get it, lots of wrestling going on, lots of all of those things. But yes, I have been married to my husband. This fall will be 10 years. And
Aw.
yeah, I feel so grateful to have the family that I have, to obviously walk with the Lord. He showed me so many different things over my life. He protected me from so many things. And so I'm here hopefully to share all of my life for the rest of my life, share about his faithfulness. So
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much for sharing with us. So many things. Okay, first and foremost, 10-year anniversary. Any big plans?
oh, well, I'm glad you asked. So just today, we got to be okay from our parents to watch our kids. So my husband and I are going to renew our vows. We went to Europe
Aw.
for our honeymoon. We went to Greece, Austria, and Germany. And so we are more than likely going to go back to Greece and renew our vows. So
Oh,
we're
that's
thinking
so
about, I
cool.
know, we're thinking about maybe having kind of like five of our ride or die friends come with us and just like, and then like kind of initiate all the ceremony. But a lot of things have to line up for them to come. So if not, it'll still be perfect.
Oh,
So
I love that so much. Yeah,
yeah.
I've never got to go to Greece. It's literally on my bucket list. But we've been in
Oh,
Germany. We lived in Germany. We've been to Austria. Austria was probably my favorite place that I went.
I know it's beautiful. The
Surprisingly, it's gorgeous. Yeah, it looks like a painting. Like you're just walking around in this like beautiful painting.
the
I love
carbs, you're
that.
like, yes, I'll take another pretzel. That would be great.
I know, seriously, it's so great. Oh, well, that's fun. Okay, so you are a mama of four.
Yeah.
And your journey to motherhood has not looked like what I can assume you imagined it would look like.
No.
So, would you share a little bit with us about that? Just some of the things that you've learned in your journey of motherhood, and also some of the, man, I don't even know how to ask that because there's so many challenges. Like, I've watched your story unfold for so many years, and it has been so beautiful to watch your faith in it all. Your ability to just show up and be vulnerable online has just been so inspiring. And in that process, I have been challenged to have more faith and to believe God in bigger ways. And so, yeah, I would love to share a little bit about your journey, hear a little bit about your journey with that.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we were in the anti-human trafficking space for a long time. And so, and my husband and I got married super, super young. And it's a really, really long story. But when we first got married, we were doing missions and we got pregnant. And it was like, whoa, this is crazy. We weren't trying. It was like 6 months after we got married. We're like, we have a 10-year plan. And long story short, we had lost that baby to an ectopic pregnancy. And it just kind of started the conversation with between the two of us of like, wow, like family, like the process of growing a family is, it's like truly miraculous. And so that started the conversation between the two of us about maybe, maybe we should grow a family in a different way. Maybe we should see how the Lord would open doors if we pursued adoption. And at this time, also, we were told that we would continue, be able to have children. And so, my whole life, I'd always dreamed of adopting. Growing up, my best friend in school, one of my best friends in elementary school, was adopted, and so I'd always seen the beautiful side of that. And then being, like I mentioned, in missions and the anti-trafficking, I see the way that traffickers tend to internationally and domestically prey on the orphanages. Domestically, they prey on foster care. And so being in an industry, we're like, this is plan A for our family. This is something that we really want to lean into. So, the process of adoption, it's a lot of paperwork and a lot of the things you have to say what you're open to and what you're not open to. And you're supposed to be very upfront, like, special needs, are you open to it? This, type of special needs. And you have these in-depth list of what you feel like you're able to take on. And in my, naivety, everything on the special needs list, I'd said, absolutely not. And there's a little bubble that says qualified or unqualified. And all of the bubble, I just wrote unqualified, unqualified, unqualified. And it's just because we're so young. I'm like,
Yeah.
it daunted me. I just thought,
Yeah.
I saw a lot of, different families in that arena, and I had so much like just awe of them, but I'm like, I do not have that kind of strength.
Right.
And so, long story short, we end up adopting our big two. And when we came home, we were just doing routine blood work. It was all, and that's its own podcast and its own thing. But came home, did routine blood work, and found out there's something abnormal about my son's blood work. And so, I think being in the lane of faith, there's such a line between optimism and faith, because you'll be like, no, it's nothing, and it's just you trying to talk yourself off of this like worst case scenario ledge.
Yeah.
And so obviously when that first happened, I'm like, no, like the quote in your head is, God would never do that. Like that would never happen. He would never.
Yeah.
And so, long story short, months of testing, and it came out with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which is a terminal genetic disease. There's no cure. Lifespan is typically unknown. You're typically in a wheelchair. Everyone varies, but the average age is about 9. You're in a wheelchair, and then basically what happens is you don't have the largest protein in your body, and so your body's just breaking down every day. And so eventually it attacks your heart, obviously, and then your heart stops. And so we got that diagnosis, and it's one of those moments, I think, where you feel like your life is like in slow motion, where you're
Yeah.
like out of body experience and you're watching and you're like, what? Your hearing goes out and it's like, no, no, no. And so that was a whole journey. That was, like I said, in 2018. There was such I think, the thing I think about bad news or getting a diagnosis is that there's kind of this pressure. Is it going to push you into the Lord? Is it going to push you away? And where we were at, I fell deep into like the secret place with the Lord. I was like, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and act like like I'm okay, and I think that's something my personality is, I've found a lot of refuge in just being honest with the Lord. And so I had a
Yeah.
lot of questions. I had a lot of emotions. I had a lot of, and a lot of people in some, realms of faith would be like, wow, that wasn't a faithful response. But that was just how I knew how to respond.
Yeah.
So, yeah, to answer your question, that was how I started motherhood. I started in the second poorest place on planet Earth with no Wi-Fi. So and I'd never been a mom, obviously, I'd never, and so I didn't have this Google. I didn't have Google to research and say, okay, hey, they bumped their head, are they going to live? Or, there
Yeah.
our first, 4 months in Liberia was so vulnerable because I had love, but that is all I had. And I
Yeah.
had all these village mamas to teach me so many things. And there were so many different people that the Lord brought to us. And then we came home, and then it was a new atmosphere of just, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to navigate this type of illness. I don't know, and you try and there would be moments where I'd be like, God is going to use this as like this, like, no, the doctor's got it wrong. Or, I had this trying to kind of change the dialogue and the narrative of the story. But my journey into motherhood, I just have learned to just like that the Lord will give you these circumstances, and it's not up to you whether or not you understand them or you even agree with them, but it's you to say, okay, you've given me these souls to entrust, to raise, to love, to nurture. And so how are you going to father me as I mother? Like, how are
That's
you
good.
going to, like, what does it look like to abide in such a new season, in such a new role, in such a new set of circumstances? And so I think you could slap that on into any person in any season. Like, what does it look like for me to truly like get into the secret place with Jesus, give him my honest and raw feelings and thoughts and fears and concerns, and then
Yeah.
come out of it confident to be able to raise up these people and these, world changers.
Yeah.
And so, and so that was its own journey. And then I gave birth, to twins about, what was that, 5 years after I came home from Liberia. And that is a different experience of motherhood because there's the physical factor, there's the, preparation of pregnancy, and so, yeah, I mean, you get it because you have four boys or five. I can't even remember.
5.
Five. I'm
Yeah.
believing for that girl. Your husband's like, no.
No, he's like, yeah. I'm like, no.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
wow. Wow. Okay. So,
yeah.
one, thank you
So
so
it's
much
just,
for sharing that.
yeah, it's chaos. It's permanent chaos. It's joy. It's just a tsunami of a million emotions. And motherhood has that ability to somehow pull out the greatest parts of you, but also some ugly parts too, right? And some raw
Yeah.
parts. So
Yeah.
learning how to just make my life an altar and make each season an altar, an actual sacrifice, and be able to say, Lord, what are you going to do with this? So,
Wow. Wow. One thing that you said that really stood out to me is like learning how to abide in that, like in the diagnosis, in the chaos of motherhood, of having four, all really young. Um, and it has just been like it's so beautiful to watch you, because I think like people who are listening who don't know you have no idea. Like there's so much to it. Like you are traveling with Asa often, so you're having to be separated from your other babies, and um,
yeah,
he was doing this a trial like in a
still
completely different
is.
state. Oh, he
Yeah,
still is. Okay, yeah, and so there's so much to it, and you are, or what it seems, is able to maintain this joy and this hope throughout the process. And so I'm curious as what are some ways that you have found to stay abiding in the chaos and in the hardship? Because I often can think about, would I be Job's wife? Would I be her? Like when I read, when you read the Bible, you always want to see yourself in the hero. And then sometimes I realize, like, oh, I'm a lot more like Saul than David? And so I ask myself, like, would I be Job's wife? And so I'm curious as to like in your the very unique challenges that have been placed before you in your journey of motherhood, what are some ways that you have found to like abide and to maintain joy?
oh man, it's such a good question. Um, I I will say first off, I am misidentified as an extrovert. People think I'm an extrovert, but I'm very, very much more introverted.
Yeah.
I think because I'm social, or because I know how to be social, people assume
Yeah.
that. But with that being said, I don't mind being alone. I love my quiet time, and in quiet and so I the first answer to your question is like fighting for my alone time with the Lord every morning has been a non-negotiable. It
Wow.
is my anchor. It is more important than my food. It is more important than my I, I want to say coffee, but I don't know if that's necessarily true because I
Because it's right there with you.
yeah, because it's in my hand. But I'll keep it real. But it's just this like that has been my heartbeat. That has been my rhythm. That has been my absolute charging source. Not to say that some seasons are not dry in my quiet time, but learning
Yeah.
how to be silent with the Lord. I don't want the distraction of worship music. I don't want the distraction of
Yeah.
like I have been able to discipline my heart to like every morning I need the presence of God to come and wash over me. I do not have an option to not step into that
Wow.
space.
Yeah.
So and you know that's hard. I mean people are listening to this, you know, 4 kids, 5 kids, like, but it is a non-negotiable. So if that looks like sacrificing sleep, if that looks like sacrificing a social life, if that looks like it count the cost. Like it's
Yep.
going to be costly, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's the first thing about abiding is there is a huge cost to it. It's a huge, you're going to be misunderstood. People are going to think you're rejecting them. People are going to think you're non-social. Like that's just something that I've had to really accept. But
Yeah.
the other thing is, there's this a couple, gosh, maybe a couple months ago, last fall, like you were sharing the people who don't know me, the dynamic of our family for 3 years, every single Friday, we have to fly to Salt Lake for ACE's doctor's appointments. And so it's this whole thing because you're away from your kids and you got, you know, he's getting needles and it's just this whole thing. And it's a 3 year process. And for 3 of those months, you're actually there the whole time. You don't come home. And so it's just been this huge sacrifice for a family. And I was doing so good. And last October, it was hit. We were almost, you know, we had 1 year left. And I'm like, okay. And I hit this moment at church. I was at church and it was like this powerful worship set. And all of a sudden, the enemy came after my mind. Like I had suppressed so much of the struggle of how hard this clinical trial and ACE's diagnosis and taking care of my family and putting dreams of my own on the back burner in the name of making sure his care was quality. And like there were just this huge thing. And I had all of these moving disappointments on the table in front of me. And I was at church and it was during worship. And all of a sudden I looked around and I heard this voice in my head that was like, nobody here likes you. They love you because they're the church, but they don't like you. They don't even know what you've been through. They wouldn't even know how to support you. They wouldn't even, and all of a sudden, this loneliness of feeling like I was so alone in my suffering, like washed over me. And I'm like, wait, yeah. And you kind of unconsciously partner with this accusing voice of like, yeah, nobody gets how hard this is. Nobody, yeah, yeah, you know, and all of a sudden I had this whole case against how I felt loved but not liked. And
Wow.
and so I went home that night. I like weep to my husband, and he's like, "Oh, what sounds like you need to like go on a walk with the Lord." And it was this whole thing. And the following week, there was this women's event, and of course, I didn't want to go. I'm like, they don't even get it. They don't understand what a sacrifice that this
Yeah.
is to come. And I'm like getting on my whole like high horse. And this woman comes up to me at the event, one of my close friends, and she said, "Hey, I have something. Could you come out to me with the car and or come out with me to my car?" And she buys me this Bays baggage. You know the cute luggage that's I think it's called Bays or is it
Oh,
Bayou?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I know
it's
what you're
like
talking about.
super, yeah, so cute. And she's like, "The Lord told me this week that all of your traveling, that he wanted you to at least be traveling in style. And I just felt like this bag, you needed to get this." And I felt like just this huge sword in my like the level of feeling seen like by the bride in that moment. It was, and so
Wow.
I wept. And right,
Yeah.
I got in the car, and the Holy Spirit said, "She gave you the gift of being able to carry baggage. Like she wants to carry your baggage so much that she got you cute baggage to put your crap in."
Wow.
So that night I go home and I'm reading and I'm asking the Lord, okay, God, how does it look? What does it look like to actually have hope when I I have a bad attitude. This isn't like, this sucks. My life situation sucks. I don't know how long my son is going to live. I don't know. There's a million other things going on. I want to do this, and this takes all my time. And the Lord takes me to Matthew 26, and it takes me to Jesus in the garden, and and I said, okay, show me what suffering looks like. Tell me, like, how am I supposed to suffer well? Who suffers well in the Bible? And he brings me to Jesus in that entire passage, and it says that he invited his two close friends to come with
Yeah.
him into the
Yeah.
garden. And then he looks at his two boys, and he says, keep watch with me while I pray and weep.
Mm.
And so there's this whole concept where the Lord started speaking to me about, bring very specific people into your absolute deep heartache and let them carry your baggage. Like, and it was this whole thing of being able to unpack this process, of just like community grief and like
Wow.
community suffering, and like, what does it look like to actually watch the bride hurt and then come alongside them. I think
Mm.
people have the misidentification that you have to be able to relate to be able to actually co-carry pain,
Yeah.
and it's not true.
Right.
It's like, oh, I didn't have a miscarriage, so I don't know how to support you in that. Or, oh, my marriage is perfect, so I don't really know how to encourage you. Like, that's a lie from the enemy, that you have to be able to relate to
Yeah.
someone's pain to hold them, and
Right.
hold well. And so there was this whole series where the Lord, for the next few weeks after that, was just showing me, this is how hope is birthed. In Romans 15:13, it says, because you trust in the Lord, he
Yeah.
is the source and production of hope and joy. And so when I read that, I hear, for me to hope and actually have joy, the first equation, or the number of the equation, is trust. And so if I don't trust, how will I actually produce a true hope and a sustainable joy? And how do I trust? That you trust by being honest. You
Mm.
cannot fabricate or create some sort of veneer trust. He knows when you're faking trust. When you say, "Oh God, I trust you," and you don't actually mean it, he would prefer if you said, "God, I don't trust you, but I want to. Will you show
Yeah.
me why and who you are in this? Show
Yeah.
me, like." And so I came to this place where the Lord, like, I was embarrassed because of how honest I was. It didn't sound like these other people that I hear in this, main kind of faith circle.
Right.
And then,
Right.
but because I abide in my quiet time, Jesus, in the morning would say, hey, now we're talking. I can work with that. Honesty,
Yeah.
I can work. You think you're playing me by like shooting all these, like, I,
Right.
please tell me the truth. Like, tell me your heart. And that's when a friendship is created with Jesus. That's when a real relation starts to unfold. You're able to expose the actual like concerns and fears, and then he's able to address them. And so it's such
Wow.
a long-winded answer, but I think for me, learning
Keep
how to maintain,
going.
but being able to maintain hope and being able to create a sustainable and true joy from the source of joy himself is only on the other side of trust. And I think there's such a beautiful outlet of trust, in suffering seasons and in hard things, when you learn how to let people carry your junk and carry your baggage, and also learning how to be honest with, where you're at, so then you can learn to trust that God is, he can take care of that. He's not going to be
Yeah.
intimidated by your honest thoughts. And so um yeah, it just is like a beautiful dance. My mentor calls faith, it's more of a duet than a solo. And so learning
Yeah.
how to walk into that duet with the Lord, and even my language the last couple of years has been, this morning actually my husband was making fun of me. I've changed my language of, God, what do you want me to do? Then, Jesus, what are we doing?
I
Like,
love
what are
that.
we this morning? I wake up, I was like, Jesus, are we getting out of bed yet? Or are we going to stay here for a few more minutes? Are we? And I changed my language even with that, and that's
Yeah.
developed this new level of just intimacy, and kind of that duet language I was just saying, of just learning. And that's obviously the fruit from that is just, when you're connected to the Holy Spirit, there's joy, there's hope.
Yeah. Oh, that is so good. Like, I'm just like, don't want you to stop. I feel like you are
Oh gosh.
preaching. Okay. You
Oh
are preaching to
gosh.
my heart. It's so powerful to just hear you share. Um, wow, that you're, I think that like I'm a mom, right? There's so many like this month, I said, May's for mamas. We're gonna like talk to the mama heart. It's so many times we're like, our worst fear, like so many of us, our worst fear is actually what you live in every single day. And you're able to maintain this joy and, like you said, the beginning of the equation is trust in Jesus, and it keeps you going and it allows you to produce, I know, this beautiful atmosphere and environment for your child who also is suffering, or for his siblings who also are suffering. And I just, there's so many things that you said in there that are so good. One thing that you said that I'm like really excited about is this idea of bringing people into your grief and like communal grief. And I think that my whole hope for this podcast is for women to come here and understand that we are better together. That, like, Moses, when he needed Aaron and her to hold his arms up on that mountaintop, that is what we do for one another in our journey of motherhood. And so I would love to hear more about everything you just said, but first I would love to hear more about what has that
Yeah.
process been like and looked like for you to like allow people into your grief, like you said about Jesus when he went up to pray and he's like, keep watch, and he came back and they were asleep, and he's like, you couldn't even stay
Mhm.
up for the hour, like,
I know.
it was that important to him that they kept watch. And so what does that look
Watched
like for
him
you?
hurt. Well, I
Yeah.
think I read that and I see so many. I mean, that in the last 6 months has been the passage that I have just like, because just to dissect it a little bit, even the word when he says, keep watch with me, a different version says remain with me. And the
Yeah.
actual Greek breakdown of that word remain is abide.
Abide. Yeah.
And so, and then the other thing I look at and I think, all like, he knew that they were going to fall asleep. He knew that man did not have a good enough pump up speech
Yeah.
to, boost his morale. The whole point of that was for him to let people watch him hurt.
Yeah.
And I see that and I think, you know what? It's like, there's so many parts of that that I've extracted over the last couple of months. But um, I look at that passage and I just see that Jesus loves to put us in these little tiny crews of trusted space. And he loves I mean, weeping is liquid prayers, like tears
Yeah.
are, it says he collects them, And so I think this whole concept of community grief, I think even in the Christian world, probably like 15 years ago, we used the term DTR a lot. Like when you were dating, like, oh, did you have a DTR? Define the relationship. And I was always like, I'm so corny. Like Christianese, just no. But I started having this thought in the fall of having these DTRs in the friendships that you're in is so important because, um, oh my gosh, for so many reasons. First off, your friendships are always evolving. And I think sometimes people just assume that you've got your ride or dies always, that will be a safe place for you. But
Yeah.
there are always going to be new seasons that God brings people in and says, hey, these are some people that you're going to be walking with for the next 40, 50 years. And so I
Yeah.
found myself last fall really wanting, like, wow, like I can feel that I'm a little bit insecure in some of my relationships. And the fruit of that is loneliness. I don't have a place to necessarily maybe share ins and outs of the season that I'm in. And so when you're able to actually examine, okay, there's loneliness. Is this because I'm burning out? I'm working, like, there's so many checklists that you could do in your own heart to be like, okay. And so for me, I saw, wow, there's a little bit of insecurity in my friendships. And I think it's because I don't know, like, is she as important to me as I am to her? Like, and so I
Yeah.
had these four friends. I was so embarrassed. But after this whole breakdown of insecurity and just like, oh, I don't feel liked by anyone and nobody's safe and my life is so hard. I had these four people I prayed, and four people came to mind where I was like, I need to sit down with these four women, and it is embarrassing. I felt so dumb. But I sat down with them. I said, listen, I need to have a defend the relationship with you. I need to know, like who am I to you, because I want to share who I am to you, to who you are to me. And
Right.
I don't want this to be uneven, and I don't want this, because we all have those friendships where you're like, oh, she likes me more than I like her,
Yeah.
like we're all hearing it, and I'm gonna say it, very few people, but like we do, right? And so
Yeah.
being able to have those relationships where you're just like, hey, this is who you are to me, and it's okay if I'm not that to you, but will you tell me right now, just so that I understand the dynamic of like, because, even when it comes to pursuit within friendship, it's such a like, oh, we're moms, we have a million things and marriages and this, and some of your friends
Yeah.
are single, and you're coming alongside them, and there's just so many things. And so learning, okay, hey, you are important to me, you're really, really crucial, I feel safe with you, how do you feel about me, will you pray about it, and then is this something where I can feel like this is like the type of relationship and dynamic where we're going to really grow alongside each other.
Right.
Are your boys good?
Can you hear them? I can hear them too. They should be fine. They
As
look
long as
fine
there's
on the
no
camera.
blood.
Fighting over a toy, it looks like on my end on the camera right here.
Sounds like
They
my
can
house.
they can manage. They can manage.
So anyway, all that to say, yeah, just like having those uncomfortable conversations and saying, hey, like, and then once you establish, yeah, like, this is my girl, like, she is a
Yeah.
safe place for her. And I am also very confident that I'm a safe place for her. And it's not just me lavishing all my pain and process on her, but she's doing the same. And it's this ironing, sharpening iron. It's this true, like, learning how to go in the cadence of genuine friendship. But then, and so, yeah, I think, gosh, God is just speaking so much to me about being able to co-carry and communal grief. And so I
Mm.
think just learning how to establish who are those people that you're going to invite into your garden to watch you eat, and
I love
having
that
those
so much.
conversations. Yeah.
That's so special to me. And you just using that verbiage, like this is such a God thing because you said, who are you going to invite into your garden? And I was on Facebook earlier and I saw my memories from 8 years ago. I had two babies at the time. I didn't know, but I was pregnant with my third. My second baby was only like 4 months old.
I
And
remember that.
yes, and it was like a shocker, right? And and I made this blog, and I was talking about how God had been showing me that motherhood, my journey in motherhood, was like my little piece of the Garden of Eden, and like what was it? What did it need to look like to tend to my garden? And what you're saying right now about communal grief, I'm thinking about that in just womanhood in general, particularly in motherhood, of like who are you inviting into your garden? Because your motherhood journey, your womanhood journey is your garden, it's your portion. And so oftentimes we are like trying our best to carry it ourselves
Mm,
and tend to it ourselves. And although it is like yours to steward, like I always refer back to that moment in Exodus with Moses, like although it was his calling to lead the people of Israel, he didn't have to do that alone. And so when he brought his friend and his brother up on the mountain with him to keep watch, to he was literally keeping watch when he was unable to fulfill his duties and his arms began to drop, they held him up. And so when I'm
yeah.
hearing you say that, just like we see with Jesus, is you're inviting these other women into your garden, not because you're wanting them to take what's yours, like take this off my plate, I'm done with it, I don't want to do this anymore. But you're like, this is a heavy load to carry, and I just need you to hold up my arms sometimes, but I'm also going to do that for you too. And it's
Yeah.
just so beautiful. And that's like my hope, in all of these conversations, like you're preaching to me right now, because it just reminds me how crucial it is that when Ecclesiastes 4 said two are better than one, it really meant, like, the writers really meant what they said, because it said that for when one falls, the other is there to pick him up. But woe to the person who is alone, for who will pick them up? And so, in all, what I'm hearing you say is in all of the hardship and traumatic experiences and weightiness of your portion of that motherhood has been for you, you're inviting other people in to help you hold it, to hold you up as you hold it up. And
Yeah.
it's keeping you going. And I
Mhm.
love that so much. And I really, really hope that people like that women take note of that, because we are not meant to do it alone. Like,
No, and I think I think it's really prideful when we try to. And I think it
yeah,
shows the true fruit of humility when you're able to go alongside other people and be
yeah,
selfless enough to carry other people's pain. And even for the person who is listening and can't think, oh, well, maybe my son doesn't have a terminal disease, but, um, you know, just whatever somebody's season is, whoever you are,
yeah,
whatever's heavy to you, having people that you say, hey, this is a rough day. Like, will you
yeah,
pray with me? And
yeah,
like really pray with me. Don't text me back that you're praying with me. Send me a voice memo declaring the blood of Jesus over me right now. Like I
yeah.
need those people. I don't have time do not have people that are going to take me and my family and my life seriously. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. No, that's so good. And yeah, like you said, it's for you in your portion, it is this terminal disease that sweet Asa has, and that is what you are needing, people to carry you up in all that, entails of you, like travel, just the
Totally.
struggle. But for somebody else, like it might be a different diagnosis. Maybe it's
Totally.
autism, or maybe it's just a really like heavy weight, like there's five boys, one me, like there's
100%.
it's no
Yes. Oh,
family, there's not,
yes.
it's yeah, so it like all in all in that journey, doing it communal is just a better option. But I
Yeah.
also love that you're so intentional. Like you were so intentional about who you invited in. Even having that, I've never actually thought about that. Like having a defined relationship with a friend.
It was awful.
That is so good though. Although yeah, I could see
Feels
that.
embarrassing
Yeah,
because
that
you
could be a
like
little weird,
it
right?
feels very transactional. Yeah, because they sit down and she's like, "Oh my girl, like she just came over to chill," and you're like, "Actually, I need you to like sign here that you like die for me." Like it's just it's so
It's
feels
so
horrible.
good though.
And I needed to use language to be really really clear because I my personality I just my enemy my mind is where the enemy plays. And
Yeah.
so if I start questioning, oh, like this person isn't like if I hear someone say, Evie, listen, I'm with you. I don't care what happens. I don't care what, like, I am with you. Call me at 2 o'clock in the morning. Listen, you need me to
Yeah.
watch your kids while you go get like a
Yeah.
sandwich by yourself. I'm your girl.
Yeah.
And so when I hear people say that, I'm like, okay, wow, wow, they really mean it.
Yeah.
So it is a very vulnerable, uncomfortable experience, but I do highly recommend. I mean, I think all of us grow in those kinds of conversations, hard
Yeah.
conversations. Who wants to do it, but it's so so crucial.
It is crucial. And it's, you know what? I think oftentimes we're so focused on these like romantic relationships that we're not giving enough time and attention to our like platonic friendships when
Oh yeah,
they're really like equally as important, because
so
like
sweet.
your friends, they hold you up like your sisters, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And so like we would, how many times have we been dating someone and we're like, so what is this? What are we
yeah,
doing?
one
What's
hundred
the
percent.
goal? What's the end here? But doing that with your friends, I honestly, I'm here for it, because these like my friends literally get me through. I mean, more than the people that I share the same DNA as me. It is my
Yep,
friends that are always coming alongside me, that are getting
yep.
me through, that are teaching me, that are challenging me, that are showing me. I've never like been on my face for hours weeping in prayer and worship with a relative of mine, but I have with my friends.
Right.
And so it is, I love that so much. And also, I just love that we didn't plan this conversation. And I love that you brought that up because, like I said, my hope for this podcast is just for women to be spurred on to do womanhood communal and
Yeah,
to be intentional about that. So I really love that. That has been such a crucial part of your story.
yeah.
And I just like you're so genuine, and I can hear like how passionate you are about that. And
Oh,
that's really beautiful. That's
gosh,
beautiful.
thanks. Thank you.
So when you're like, as you're navigating through, one, motherhood came to you in different ways. You adopted the babies. And then
Hmm.
when you were going to adopt, were you intentionally going to adopt both of them?
No,
That's what
no,
I
no, no.
thought. Okay, that's what I thought. I was like,
We
am I remembering right?
yes, we had like literally 10 cents to our name. We had absolutely no money and no faith for two, and no patience and no nothing. But long story short, we got paired with two. It was like actually so crazy because we got so many prophetic words that they're like, I just see double, I see twins, I see double, I see double.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, and then we didn't even want to. And then we got approval from the US Embassy approval to adopt two. And our agency was like, whoa, that's crazy. Like that's pretty hard to get. And they just, and so anyway, long story short, we got into, and Esther is my oldest girl. She is my only girl. Her and I, we are just two
I'm
peas in a
obsessed
pod.
with little Birdie. I love her so much.
Oh, Birdie is an absolute firecracker. And we just always say, we don't know what we would do without each other because we got so many
Oh,
boys around.
stop. I love
So
it.
yeah, she's my girl. And then Asa is just my joy bomb. He is just absolute. joy in a human. He has
Yeah.
his talent show at school tonight, and he's freestyling to it.
Stop. Please send
He's
me a video.
well, he's freestyling to a Chance the Rapper beat, and
Oh,
he wants to like make beats, and so
like his dad?
like his daddy, yes. And so we got the hip hop guys, and so anyway, our yeah,
I
they
love
just
that.
becoming their mom, and even just the whole process of adoption. It's a response to brokenness, and so when we first adopted, I had a lot of guilt that I loved them so much because I thought they shouldn't be in this situation. You know, they should.
Yeah.
And so it's a whole thing to surrender to the Lord of like, I am here to love these children and thank you for giving them and trusting them to me, but this should not be. This
Yeah.
should, there's, and so it is
Yeah.
such a just dichotomy and confusing experience
Yeah.
to walk in. So I'm thankful for it,
Yeah.
but also I hate it. So
Acknowledge the what it brought you there. Absolutely. And then your twins. Okay, so I'm a mess, right? I just cry a lot. When you announced the twins, dude, I was a wreck. Okay. I literally, my husband was like, "What's wrong?" I was like, she's pregnant with twins. Like, it was so ugly. But because,
oh well.
again, that was quite a journey for you.
So did you ever hear the story of how we the whole story? Did I ever tell you
Of
this?
how you found out?
So we did IVF, and it's a
Yeah.
crazy story because we got in a clinical trial to do IVF, and so because we started in the clinical trial, we avoided a bunch of testing that you're supposed to do when you start
Okay.
IVF.
Beforehand.
And so yes, and so after doing needles and injecting my body and a million things for 4 months, the day before my IVF transfer, I get kicked out of the trial because my body just would not respond, and they were like, "Lady, you're not made to have children." And they just kept, and I got turned down by so many different doctors. And
Wow.
this was kind of our last Hail Mary. And so we begged the doctors, would you just do a transfer? And we'll pay, like, is this whole thing? Long story short, we transfer. Oh, the day before the transfer, they said, this is crazy. If you had typically started IVF in the normal route, we would have done this routine blood work and found that you have a recurring miscarriage gene. But because you did the trial, we didn't do this. So we really don't feel like we
Wow.
should do this transfer. We feel like it's not wise. It's less than 3% chance of one of them taking, and you're going to transfer two. So anyway, we were like, we just, you know what? We're just going to go for it. And
Go
so we
for it.
transferred two. Zach was in, I think we went to LA for work for something, and I was by myself, middle of COVID, and I'm 6 weeks on the dot, pregnant, and I just start gushing blood. And so, for anybody who has had, pregnancy loss, it is you see blood and you panic. So I happened to be at my pastor's house actually, and at a baby shower, and I was, and there was blood everywhere. I didn't know what to do, and so I sprint to the ER, and they come in and they said, we think you're having a miscarriage. We're going to take you back to the ultrasound and da 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 da. And I'm a mess. I'm all by myself. We go back to the ultrasound, and this is over a course of like 6 hours because the ER is so slow. So
Yeah.
you're like just grueling in emotion of like what is on the other side of this news.
Yeah.
And so we go to the ultrasound room, and she has to do a vaginal ultrasound, and she says, okay, I see one. It looks like you're losing the, it looks like you're miscarrying the other. So I see one baby. And I grabbed her hand. I have never been more intense in my life. I grabbed her hand and I said, I need you to look harder. And she was like, I think she thought I was going to like, like do something crazy. And I said, I looked at her in the eyes and I said, I am not walking out of this room until you show me two heartbeats. And she was like, do I need to call security? Like I was so intense. And she said, okay, okay. And so she keeps looking, and all of a sudden she starts crying. The ultrasound tech starts crying, and she's like, oh my gosh, there are two heartbeats. And she's like, I've been
Oh,
doing this. Yeah. And she's like, I have never, and she's like, was like, I was so scared of you. You really scared me. And I just started, I just knew, in my heart of hearts, like, I was like, I
wow.
just know they're hanging on. And so, it was a very dramatic experience of learning that it was twin boys. And we waited
Yeah.
till the very last week of the pregnancy to find out if it was twin boys. And so, yeah, my every single child that has found their way into my life, I am like, man, it's by the grace of God. I do not deserve these
Yeah.
humans, all four of them. And
Wow.
they've just taken me on a masterclass of learning grace and tenderness and softening my heart. And
Wow.
um, I didn't have a very good relation. I don't have a relationship with my mom. And most of my life, it's been very, very broken. And so watching the way that you raise your children and being able to redeem a
Mm,
dynamic that you didn't have is like,
absolutely.
oh, it's just such a gift.
Wow. That
Yeah.
is so beautiful. I just love you so much. And it is just like seeing the Lord sustain you, through all of these things. Because, like you said, all the babies that have found their way to you, it has been a fight. It has
Yeah.
been a journey. It wasn't just like, oh, we're doing what we do and there came a baby. Like, no, like it
Totally.
has been like you have tilled the ground and you have like watered the soil with your tears and worship and in prayer to the Lord. And even still, like through all of the hard things, like even still you see that God is just bringing you this beautiful harvest in your motherhood journey. And it just sounds so sanctifying, you going
Yeah.
through this and you, like you said, like fighting for that time with the Lord in the morning and being intentional about who you're inviting into your grief and just like pursuing your own story in motherhood, despite what your story with your mother is and was. It is just all so glorious. And just like in everything
Yeah.
you're saying, I'm just hearing this like
Yes.
glory to glory, glory to
Totally.
glory. And so I just love that. And I'm so grateful that you share that with us online. It is such a joy to follow you and to come alongside you in prayer and to like fight in the spiritual, like in the heavenlies, like for Asa and for your family.
Yeah.
It does feel like a privilege. So thank you for just sharing your
Yeah.
life with us.
Oh my gosh, thank you. And I've always felt your lift, like who you are and the
Mm,
strength that you carry, even like from states away. And we've never even like embraced flesh to flesh, but I've
yeah.
always felt the strength from you. I've always
Mm,
felt just the genuine, yeah, just courage that you've infused into our family. And I know you're also one of the people that I'm like, dang, when she's talking about praying for my son, I know she means it. And
yeah,
it's like,
absolutely.
when people pray for your kids, it's like game over. Like you're
Yeah,
in my will. Like you are,
absolutely.
you are in
Yes.
it. So I
Yeah.
love you dearly.
I love you. I love your babies. I love your family. I always trying to think like you and Zach would be besties. I'm convinced. Like
Oh, 100%. Are you kidding?
I
Oh my
love it
gosh.
so much. I look forward to the day where we finally get to
It's
meet.
gonna
And
happen.
oh, absolutely. I get to hug your babies and just like
Oh,
look them in the eye because, like, yes, I have been praying for them. And yeah, it's just wild how the Lord can like yoke you together with people,
I know.
because I
I know. The
like,
internet is so
I
weird.
know it's wild. It's so wild. Like our like grandparents would literally not be able to wrap their head around this, but it's real. Like
No,
it's
it
real.
is
It's a
real.
real
It is,
love
yeah.
and togetherness. And so I'm
Yep.
so grateful for you. I want to just like wrap this up with you sharing, if you can like share one encouragement, um, one nugget for a woman who is in a similar situation where maybe diagnosis has hit their family unexpectedly for their child, or maybe even with struggling with infertility. There's so many pieces to your motherhood journey. And if
Yeah.
you could encourage a young mama who or aspiring mama who is just desperate to see the Lord move on behalf of her
Mhm.
and her motherhood journey, what would you say to her?
Oh, gosh. What would I say to her? I have so many books I would put in her hands, but
Well, send them to me. We'll put them in the show notes.
yeah. Oh gosh, I would say, I mean, this isn't a nugget. This is just what I would encourage anyone who's just hurting and
Yeah.
dreaming for just movement in a specific dream in their heart. And that's journaling. It's such an
Mm.
elementary answer, but learning how to extract your emotions and put them in writing and in a place and being honest. For a long
Yeah.
time, I wouldn't be honest in my journal because I was so afraid that somebody would read them. And I had this extreme fear that my kids would find them later and be super disappointed and like struggles that their mom was
Oh,
having. And so when I was able to put that to rest, learning how to excavate the raw parts and it is so incredibly healing. it's so incredibly, like, you just feel seen by the Lord. I think there's just something there that gives you that momentum to continue to keep
Wow.
believing, and not
Yeah.
kind of become stagnant in your hope or stagnant in what you're believing for, or just settle. I think I
Mm.
watch so many people, so many powerful women. I just watch them settle because of hope fatigue, and it's so real.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm like, I get it. I have so much compassion for that, but I want to see you fight the good fight. I want to see you run
Mm.
the full race. And
Yeah.
I think just being able to be honest with yourself is the first step. And then once you're able to excavate and extract that onto your own paper, then you step into the new chapter of, okay, now, Lord, who are you asking me to walk alongside? And who are you asking me to, allow
Ugh.
carry? Like, who's going to carry me?
Wow.
So, like we've been talking about this last hour. So, yeah. And then the last thing is just, I see so many people of faith, and it burdens me, but it burdens me when I watch people's faith ride on the wingtails of other people's faith. When
Mm.
they will watch a YouTube video and they'll watch, and I'm not saying it's bad to watch people worship. I have worship, I mean, almost 24 hours, YouTube is always on our
Right.
phone,
Right.
TV, but I'll watch other people encounter God, and I'm like, you can encounter him. And so,
That's so
and it's
good.
comfortable, it's vulnerable, it's also like, you're like, oh, is there a time and a place in which I should, like, but I always hear the Lord, like, just that abiding, that constant, you don't ever have to step out of sync
Mm.
in the rhythm of my grace. Like, there is an actual fountain that will never stop flowing if you
Ooh.
choose to, like, rest under my wings. And so, yeah, just developing that quiet time and that deep intimacy with Abba all by
Wow.
yourself, and not
Yeah.
needing these beautiful, beautiful things that are, crucial. And I'm not dogging any of those things, but if you can get to a place with the Lord where, what if it was just me and him in silence? What if I
Yeah.
didn't need anything else?
Yeah.
Um, reading right now, I'm reading Practicing the Presence by Brother Lawrence for like the fifth time. And so
Mm.
if anyone hasn't read that, they need to. It's a crucial Christian literature piece that just
Okay.
will unite everybody in faith.
Ordering
Um,
it today. Practicing the
yeah, it's
presence. Okay.
practicing the presence, just learning how to practice his presence in the day in and day out. Like, what if we were people that when we were washing the dishes, he was with us? What if we were
Wow.
people, as we were disciplining our kids or having a hard conversation, we were pausing and speaking slow enough to ask him, Lord, what are you saying to my child right now? Like,
Mm.
learning how to truly wait on the Lord is such a discipline that I do not know, that I do not operate in. And so I want to grow in that. I want to,
Wow.
like, be so close to him that I'm like in his shadow, like
Yeah.
I want to mirror him. I want to be like Jesus. I want to do only what my father's doing, so
Amen. Yeah.
gosh, that's a mouthful, but those are the things I would tell somebody.
I could actually listen to you go on all day. I really could.
Stop and get
No,
out.
like, sir, I'm flying to Boise. Like, I literally
100%. Listen,
like.
the flights from Phoenix to Boise round trip are like $110.
Don't play with me. I'm about to be on your couch.
I know, 100%. Oh,
No,
maybe you
that's
could
so
style me. You
amazing.
and Zach.
Oh
Oh my
my
gosh.
gosh, I love it.
You and Zach and your whole fashion styling would literally, you guys would be BFFs.
That'd be so fun.
Yes,
It's gonna happen. Okay, right now you heard it first on the HSYS
yes.
podcast. There will
Come on.
be a Jalyssa and Ebie collaboration coming to a city near you. I love you so much.
Yeah.
There's just a wealth of knowledge in what you just shared. And one thing personally that I'm taking away from this conversation is how honest am I with God? Because God does not, like, he knows. He already
Yeah.
knows. And it's
Yeah.
almost like this challenge of, like, when he was walking with, or when he was calling Adam and Eve after they had sinned, and he was like calling for them, like,
Where are you?
who
Where
told
are you?
you? Yeah,
Yes.
and who told you you were? And it almost is that same experience. And, like, I'm covering myself in fig leaves before the Lord who created me, like my innermost being. And so that's something that I'm really gonna take, is like, how honest am I being with God, and why am I afraid to just, like, let the words come out of my mouth?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. There's just breakthrough in that. I could just feel it. There's breakthrough in that.
100%. And if you're not honest with him, you're not going to be honest with yourself. And then all of a
Absolutely.
sudden, you're
Like,
going to
I'm
wonder.
middle Little Miss Delulu. That's like the trendy thing, right? That's me right now with the Lord. So no, I love that. Thank you so much.
Same. Oh, thank you for trusting me with your platform and your people. And I love you dearly.
No, what an honor to have you here. Thank you. I love you. And yeah, everybody, please go follow along her family's journey. It's such a beautiful, inspiring, and encouraging journey to watch. And yeah, I just appreciate you and happy Mother's Day.
Yes, and I'll see you next week on my
I
podcast.
see. Yeah, ooh, I'm excited.